Hi, I'm Pam. If you've been to my channel before, welcome back. If this is your first time visiting, welcome. Summer is just about to end. Fall is right around the corner. Anyone who knows me knows that summer is my absolute favorite season of all. And unfortunately for me, summer must come to an end sometime. And as you know, pumpkin spice season is upon us. I myself don't particularly like pumpkin spice. Coffee, cereal, bagels, it's all over the place. I just don't like pumpkin spice, but I do like pumpkin. I like traditional pumpkin pie, pumpkin cake, pumpkin muffins, bread, anything pumpkin-y, as long as it doesn't have the pumpkin spice. So today we're going to be creating a pumpkin molasses cake, and it comes from the Better Homes and Gardens new cookbook. This was published in 1981. If you grew up in the 1980s or 90s, you probably saw this cookbook either in your mom's kitchen, maybe your grandma's kitchen, maybe a friend's kitchen. This was a go-to for many homemakers, whether they worked out of the home or not, back in the 80s and the 90s. And back in 1981, as those of you who are of a certain age may recall, President Ronald Reagan was sworn in for his first term that January. Also in January, the DeLorean sports car, the one that was featured in 1985's Back to the Future movie with Michael J. Fox, that rolled off the manufacturer's line for the very first time in Ireland in January of 1981. The first London Marathon took place in March of that year with 7,500 runners. MTV launched its very first broadcast on August 1st of 1981. And of course, a very popular trivia question is, which was the very first video played on MTV? And it was Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles. And finally, TV evening soap drama Dynasty debuted January 12th of 1981 and ran for 9 seasons. Again, we're going to be making the pumpkin molasses cake from the Better Homes and Gardens new cookbook, published in 1981. Let's get baking. The first thing you're going to want to do is to lightly grease and flour a 13 by 9 by 2 inch baking pan. I've gone ahead and done that. I'm using a Pyrex dish here, but if you have a metal pan, that's fine. My oven is preheating to 350 degrees. The ingredients for our pumpkin molasses cake are 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. If you have cake flour, that's fine. 2 teaspoons of grated orange peel, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1/2 cup butter or margarine, 1.5 cups of packed brown sugar, 2 eggs, 3/4 cup buttermilk or sour milk, a 1/2 cup of canned pumpkin, and finally a 1/4 cup of light molasses and also powdered sugar for the very end. I've gone ahead and measured my flour into this bowl here. The first thing you want to do is to combine all of your dry ingredients. I'm going to go ahead and add this is considered one of the dry ingredients, the grated orange peel. That's just about from the rind of an entire orange. So pop that in there. We have our 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Our 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm using the pink Himalayan salt because that's what I have on hand. Kosher salt is very popular in cooking and baking. Whatever kind of salt you happen to have on hand is fine. Our 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. And here's our ½ teaspoon of ground ginger. And we'll go ahead and combine these with our whisk until everything is nicely combined. Now, because I live in a high altitude, that can wreak some havoc with baking. Cakes don't always rise properly, or they sink after they look like they've risen properly. So I have made a couple of adjustments to my ingredients, and I will let you know what those are down in the comment section with the recipe. Okay, that looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and set that aside. Next, we have our ½ cup of butter. Make sure it's been sitting out of the fridge for a little while. It needs to be soft. I'm doing this all by hand today. I did not feel like dragging out the mixer. You can absolutely do all this by hand. So you're going to want to just beat the butter just a little bit until it's creamed a little bit for about 30 seconds. You can see that's getting a nice creamy texture. Okay. The next step is to add your brown sugar until everything is well combined. The recipe does not specify dark or light brown sugar. I happen to have light brown sugar on hand, so that's what I'm using. The only difference between light and brown is the fact that brown sugar just has a little more molasses content than the light brown sugar, and therefore it has a little bit more pronounced molasses flavor. That's really the only difference. And if you don't like a heavy molasses flavor, then light molasses, or excuse me, light brown sugar is the way to go. As I was saying earlier, pumpkin spice is not my favorite flavor, and my friends love to tease me on social media by posting all sorts of pumpkin spice this or that to my Facebook page. Okay. That is pretty well combined. Butter stuck to my spoon just a little bit. And now you're going to add your eggs one at a time. And you're going to want to mix each one of those in separately. About 30 seconds should do it. One, and now we're ready for the next one. Egg number 2. Got to break the yolk. That yolk does not want to break. There we go. Okay. That looks pretty good. Just make sure we get all of the white combined in there and all of the yolk. If you don't get your egg completely incorporated into your batter, you might end up with a bit of scrambled egg in your finished product. Okay. Now, the next step is to add your milk and your molasses to the mixture. You can, as I said earlier, you can use either buttermilk or sour milk. I did not have any buttermilk on hand. It's not something I drink. It's not something I normally have on hand. And so I created some soured milk, and here it is. Now, it used to be before pasteurization, that milk, if it sat out long enough, would go sour. Now with the pasteurization process, it won't go sour. It will simply go bad if you leave it out long enough or it gets too old or what have you. So for cooking, to sour the milk, if you would rather do that than use buttermilk, which is a perfectly acceptable substitute, you take 1 cup of milk, whole milk, 1%, 2%, whatever, and add either a tablespoon of vinegar or lemon juice, whichever one you happen to have on hand, and leave it at room temperature for anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. But you can see that something has definitely happened. So we want 3/4 of a cup of milk. That's lopping in. Just make sure I don't add too much. Okay. And actually, because I'm at the high altitude, I'm just going to add a titch more. Okay. Yeah, that should do it. I'm going to mix that in. Make sure you don't go wild with the spoon, or your mixture will splatter all over the counter and probably you. There, that looks pretty well incorporated. I'm going to add my 1/2 cup of pumpkin. Now, canned pumpkin is obviously very convenient, available year-round at your grocery store. This time of year too, a lot of people do enjoy using fresh pumpkin. Obviously the best to use would be those small sugar pumpkins, which are bred specifically for cooking and baking. That's not to say you can't use the giant jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, but they just don't have as much flavor and they have a lot more water content. And one of the easiest ways to prepare those is to cut it in half, take out all the seeds, put it face down onto a baking sheet, pop it in your oven at a low temperature until the flesh is soft, and then you can scrape it out of the shells and pop it into a food processor and it's ready to go. Now, the one thing I did not pre-measure because I wanted to show you a trick was for the molasses. Molasses are very sticky and kind of a royal pain to scrape fully out of your cup. So I've got my measuring cup here, and I've got my cooking spray right here, and I'm just going to spray the inside of my cup like that. And now when I pour my molasses in, it will come out very easily. So we've got a 1/4 cup of molasses. The recipe calls for light molasses. I don't know that I've ever actually seen light molasses at the store. However, this brand says it has a mild flavor. Molasses can be very strong. So, go ahead and see how easily that comes out now. Got most of it out. Pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and mix that in as well. You'll know it's all set when you have a consistent color and you don't see molasses swirls. Okay. Now I'm going to take this and add it bit by bit to my dry ingredients. Actually, I think I'm going to get another wooden spoon. That beep was my oven. It's all preheated and ready to go. I know a lot of people are not big fans of summer because it can get excruciatingly hot depending on where you live. I think one of the reasons I like summer so much is I have a lot of really good memories from my childhood of summer. You know, my dad was a teacher, so he had summers off, and he ended up taking on a job back in the mid-70s as he ran a day camp for this institution where adults came to take classes and sometimes would bring their families. And so he ran a program for the children. And every summer we did all sorts of fun things. We'd go up to Lake Tahoe, Virginia City, Pyramid Lake, hiking. No, that wasn't my favorite part. Anybody who knows me knows I don't like hiking. Day hikes are fine, but I'm not much of a mountaineer. Roller skating, all sorts of fun stuff every summer. And then also, as a family, we would go camping at Pyramid Lake just about every weekend. So I'm thinking maybe that's part of the reason why I like summer so much. Lots of good memories. Plus, one of the things that bums me out about the fall is that it's the gateway to winter, and I don't like the cold. I know I probably should have moved to Florida or Arizona or something, but here I am. All right. Oh, it smells wonderful. I can smell the molasses. You can see here it's got a really nice consistency. That is ready to go. Hate to waste any of the batter. Okay. Ready to put it into my baking pan. Get out my rubber spatula to make sure we get everything. My Pampered Chef spatula that I've had forever. I don't even know if Pampered Chef is still around. It was a huge thing back in the 90s and early 2000s to have those Pampered Chef parties and spread that in as evenly as you can. going to go ahead and pop it into my 350-degree oven. Okay, it's now going to cook for 30 to 35 minutes until done. I will show you a really great test to know whether it's done or not, in case you don't know. When we take it out, I'll see you in a little bit. The cake is ready to come out in just a moment. While I've been waiting for it to bake, I went ahead and took care of my dishes. For the love of all that is holy, if you have Pyrex that's patterned, please, please, please don't put it in the dishwasher. It may say dishwasher safe, but the pattern will eventually fade. And if you want your Pyrex to keep its value, then you will take a few minutes to hand wash it. Anyway, let's go ahead and pull the cake out of the oven and see how it looks. Okay, the cake is ready to come out. It's been just over 30 minutes. Okay. Now, other than looking at it, you can see that the top is cracked slightly. A couple of ways that you can figure out if your cake is done before cutting a slice out of it and being disappointed that it's doughy. You can do the touch test, which is where you just take a finger and lightly, see, it doesn't make an indentation that doesn't go away. So nice and springy. And then another way to tell if it's done is to take either a very thin, sharp knife or a toothpick. Toothpicks are preferable. I don't know what happened to my toothpicks. I think when I moved, I failed to take them with me. But I've got a sharp, thin knife and just right down into the center of the cake. Bring it back out. If there are no crumbs sticking to your knife or toothpick, then your cake is done. Put it here. It's going to cool for a little while, but before it fully cools, we're going to sprinkle it with a little bit of powdered sugar. Don't just dump powdered sugar out of the container, the bag, whatever. You want to put it into one of these sifters. That should be enough. If not, we can always get a little more. And just go ahead and tap your sifter so that the sugar comes out evenly. Looks great. We're going to allow the cake to cool and then we'll do a taste test. Okay, the cake has cooled enough to cut a piece, and let's go ahead and do a taste test. Looks amazing. A nice moist crumb, and the powdered sugar is staying on top nicely. That's why it's important to do it right after the cake comes out of the oven so that it will stick and not just fly all over the place. Looks good. Really good. The molasses flavor is not overpowering. I can absolutely taste the ginger and the cinnamon. It all melds together very nicely. It's a very mild flavored cake. If you like molasses, if you like pumpkin, and if you like fall, this is absolutely the cake for you to try. That was fun. Thank you so much for joining me. I absolutely love to bake. I hope you do too. If you decide to try the cake, let me know how it comes out in the comments below. If you like this video, please be sure to like it. Please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.